Joining me now to discuss this week's hot topics is senior columnist with The Australian, Nick Cater. Nick, let's start in Victoria. Dan Andrews' Teflon coating has taken another hit with the release of the latest IBAC findings. The Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission's 308-page report gives an insight into the way things operate in this state. But Nick, despite the Premier and his senior ministers being wined and dined by a property developer whose fat donations were rewarded with privileged access, there were no adverse findings against the Premier. And you know what? I don't think anyone will be surprised that at the end of this, Dan Andrews has just increased his power base yet again. He's a master of using a crisis to his advantage.
Yeah, well, the only thing I disagree with what you've said is that his Teflon coating is coming off. It doesn't seem to be. It's just incredible. I wish I could have Teflon coating like that on my frying pan.
Just a hit.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's a damning report. You know, I mean, in New South Wales, you know, you only have to have an unaccounted for bottle of Grange, and you get thrown out as Premier. You know, I think we should send our IBAC down there just quietly and sort this man out. But it has been a terrible fortnight for him. I think the Commonwealth Games, pulling out the Commonwealth Games, really hit Australians hard because we don't like to Welsh on deals. That's gone down very badly. But even so, I don't have any great hope that he's going to be defeated. Do you?
Oh, no. No, I don't, because he has no opposition. This is what I keep saying. It's not that the Victorian people love and adore this man. It's that there is no choice here. So it's not surprising he does particularly well. Now, let's talk about the Indigenous voice to Parliament. Noel Pearson appeared on the ABC's 7:30 report last night, and he claimed that Indigenous people are excluded from the Constitution.
Well, how can you say it's going to divide Australia when Indigenous people are excluded from the Constitution? The Constitution is incomplete.
Nick, Indigenous people are not excluded. They're Australian citizens like you and me. What Pearson seems to want is for Indigenous people to be elevated above other citizens.
Well, exactly. I mean, I could argue the Constitution isn't complete because there's no mention of old white males, right? But the whole point is that the Constitution is colourblind. That's what people voted for in 1967, a colourblind Constitution, one in which there is no discrimination against any group of people on the grounds of race. Now, he wants to put this massive clause in that basically gives Indigenous people extra rights, an extra voice to Parliament. Well, I'm sorry, Noel, that isn't going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because it doesn't matter whether you can trace your ancestors back 60,000 years or whether you've only signed the dotted line for citizenship 5 minutes ago. You are equal in this country, and it must remain so.
Mm-hmm. And that is something to be enormously proud of. And it was something the left would have championed not that long ago. But now they're all about racial privilege, which is just bizarre to me. Also bizarre is this big news out of Victoria, the government banning new homes from putting in gas connections from next year. At the same time, the cost of generating electricity is skyrocketing, Nick, up 30%. Labor's pushes this notion that they represent the working class. But, Nick, we know they're the ones who are going to be hit hardest by these measures.
Well, that's right. It's interesting to see overnight Tony Blair in the UK, of all people, has come out opposing measures that hit ordinary people hard, as they always do. This is another blow to ordinary working people who just want to come home and cook a stir fry, isn't it? I mean, the price of electricity goes up. They're paying a fortune for that. The poorest people in the country pay a higher proportion of their disposable income on energy than the richest people. It is just thoroughly unfair. And last week we had the report by the Net Zero organisation in Melbourne, which said that we're going to have to use a lot of gas to make up for all the electricity we're getting rid of. It's a completely the wrong decision, and I think another reason to throw Dan Andrews out, perhaps.
Well, as far as I know, the Victorian opposition back these bold emission targets, because let's not forget at the last state election, the Vic Libs had emission targets higher than the Albanese government. So they were somewhat to the left of the Albanese government. Now, earlier in the week, you published a video of what you described as a wind turbine graveyard in Queensland. Tell me about what you found.
Yeah, well, I was up there to look at a place called Chulumbum, where this is basically a beautiful piece of unspoilt natural tropical forest where they're going to destroy with another of these wind turbine industrial estates. And one of the locals said to me, do you know what they do with these turbine blades? I said, I think they throw them away. He said, come and look at some. So we went up, we found them in this, it's actually in a quarry right there in the middle of the woods. The owner tells me that they are on their way for recycling, but I don't frankly believe it. I don't think there is a cost-effective way of recycling them. The only thing I did think, Rita, is that there's a nice little hollow place for animals to nest, you know, for birds to go overnight. So perhaps, you know, perhaps they are doing something for the environment after all, but not very much. Can you imagine if you were running a coal mine and you dumped slurry in a corner like that? They'd be on you like a ton of bricks.
And the energy requirements needed just to manufacture that, and then to see it dumped in that manner after I don't know how many years, yeah, no one pays attention to any of that normally. Thank you for doing that, Nick Cater. Always a pleasure.